They all laughed, thinking I couldn't hear them. But I heard it all. Every snide comment, every suppressed giggle behind those glittering champagne glasses, every poisonous whisper exchanged like secrets at a funeral. In front of me sat a place card, crisp, expensive, white with elegant black serif letters. Except instead of my name, someone had taken the time to type out a cruel message. IDIOTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTMy wife glanced at it, sipped her wine to hide the smirk crawling across her face, then leaned toward her boss, Cassandra. There was a knowing sparkle in her eyes, as if they both shared a secret, and that secret was me, the joke at their table. That moment split my world in two. Before that night, I had been the devoted husband, the quiet financial backer, the man behind the curtain supporting her ambitions. After that night, something inside me changed. I became sharper, colder, a version of myself none of them saw coming. We'd been married for 8 years. I met her when she was bartending at a trendy rooftop lounge downtown. She was driven, determined, hungry for more. I respected that. I believed in her. I backed her dreams, paid for her MBA, opened doors through my own connections, and wrote the checks that got her through the gatekeepers of the business world. I stood by and proudly watched her climb, first as an assistant, then an analyst, then rising to a senior role at Cassandra Stratton's boutique firm. And then the changes began. She started coming home later. Her wardrobe shifted, sleeker, more designer labels. Her tone turned distant. The words changed too, less we, more me. One night, I asked if we were still in this together. She brushed it off, accused me of being insecure. 3 weeks before that humiliating party, I stumbled onto the truth. She'd left her laptop open on the kitchen island. I wasn't snooping, it was just there. The subject line of the email read, "Tonight, same room." Curiosity turned into dread. It wasn't just one message. There were dozens. Photos, dinner reservations, hotel confirmations, group chats with her coworkers calling me Mr. Doormat. They laughed about how Cassandra enjoyed watching her girls toy with spineless men, even daring each other to see who could disgrace their partner the most. I kept scrolling until my eyes ached. I didn't cry, didn't yell. I just closed the laptop gently, went upstairs, and kissed her goodnight like nothing had changed. That was the moment my plan began. For 3 weeks, I pretended not to know. Held her hand. Helped her choose a dress for the event. Even offered to drive her there. What she didn't see was that while she slept, I was speaking with a top-tier divorce attorney. I gathered every document I could find, bank records, transaction histories. I traced her spending, collected proof that those business trips and team retreats were nothing but elaborate lies. While she lay next to me, I was quietly closing accounts, setting up the legal groundwork, transferring assets in ways that followed the law, but not her expectations. I wasn't reacting out of rage. I was moving with purpose, with clarity. Then the night of the event arrived. The venue was pure luxury, polished concrete floors, rare wines, a crowd of people who only smiled when their eyes were closed. I walked in beside her, unnoticed. No greetings, only glances loaded with disdain. Not one person said hello, just whispered mockery until I found my seat, and saw it again. IDIOTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTTI smiled, settled into my seat, and watched them through the flickering candlelight like I was at the theater. Then Cassandra stood, lifted her glass, and offered a toast. To women who can't be shaken. The table erupted in cheers. I sat quietly, cutting into my steak, each bite mechanical. No one noticed the folder tucked neatly inside my bag. No one gave a second glance to the stack of signed NDAs, the private investigator's findings, or the incriminating photos clipped together. She didn't notice when I slipped a small USB drive into the pocket of her firm's lead attorney on my way to the bar. But she did notice when I stood up to leave. She caught my arm, voice laced with fake concern. "Leaving already?" I offered a polite smile. "Just a little tired." Then I turned toward Cassandra. "Before I head out, let me make one thing clear. This is the last time you'll see me. I'm cutting ties with all of you." For a brief second, silence fell. Confusion flickered across her expression, taut and overly smooth from injections. Then I turned and walked away. What happened next? A chain reaction they couldn't stop even if they tried. 3 days later, a formal notice landed on her desk. Divorce. Grounds. Infidelity. Attached to the filing was a full portfolio, documented proof of the affairs, misappropriated funds, mental cruelty. Ironclad. I'd made sure of it. And because she had signed several firm-related contracts using my name as a financial guarantor, a major deal her company was about to close with a European investment group fell through. The entire agreement unraveled. That's when the regulators stepped in. The audits that followed uncovered more than just personal scandals: fraud, embezzlement, ethical violations buried in years of reports. All of it came to light once the right people received the right evidence at exactly the wrong time for them. In under 2 months, Cassandra's shiny little empire collapsed. My now ex-wife tried reaching out, 17 missed calls in one night alone. I ignored every single one. Her last voicemail was short. Just one line. "You planned this." And she was right. But it was never about revenge for the sake of pain. If I wanted to be cruel, I would have flipped the table that night, called her out in front of the room, drenched her in wine and rage. But that wasn't my goal. No, this was precise. Calculated. I wanted her to feel it slowly, to understand the weight of everything she had mocked and discarded. The man she once belittled? He owned it all. Our home, the car, the investments. The same man she laughed at controlled the finances and, as it turned out, held the fate of her boss in the palm of his hand. Now her former employer was the subject of a federal investigation. Those smug girl bosses who'd clinked glasses at my expense? Some are jobless. Some are tangled in lawsuits. Others have gone strangely quiet on social media. I still remember the smell of that upscale venue, the linen napkins, the lemony hand soap in the restroom, the seared sea bass that everyone raved about. But what stays with me the most is the stillness in the room when I walked away. A strange silence, uncertain, unsettled, stretched too long to ignore. They didn't know what I meant that night. But they do now. These days, my life is simple. A tidy apartment. Peaceful mornings. No more pretending. No more performance. I'm not angry. Not bitter. I don't have to be. I have peace. They have the fallout. And now, every time I sit at a restaurant and see a place card, I smile. Because I remember what they forgot. Even the quiet one, even the so-called idiot trash, can reduce entire kingdoms to ashes, without ever raising his voice.